So let's wrap up our lecture on public choice. So, quick recap. When we start applying economics to politics and removing the romantic notion from politics and government and political decision making, we acknowledge that yes, markets, they're not perfect, but neither is government. Political action, it can go bad without intent, the knowledge problem, or with intent, the incentive problem, which is what our three big insights kind of showed us. And those three big insights, well, politicians, they favor special interests. Bureaucracy, it's inefficiently large. And voters are ignorant. Okay, well, so what? So what, Dr. Maiozzi? Why does all this matter that much? What's the big deal with this whole politics without romance stuff? Well, using public choice, we can compare not just the outcomes of markets versus government, but the rules and the incentives and why we get those outcomes. Well, in the market, goods are allocated to those who are willing to pay the price. There's a one-to-one relationship between a person's payment and receipt of that good. This is not usually the case when decisions are made politically. Sometimes goods are allocated to people even if they have paid little or nothing to cover their costs. In other instances, individuals are required to pay for a government program, even though they derive few, if any, benefits from it. I mean, we have to pay Social Security tax even though we don't get any. In fact, we won't get any. That program is going to be insolvent in just a couple of years. The private sector action is based on mutual agreement. We voluntarily engage in the exchange, where in the public sector, action is based usually on majority rule, or it's just coercive. If you don't pay your taxes, you're going to go to jail. It's that simple. In the market sector, when two parties engage in trade, their actions are voluntary and motivated by the expectation of mutual gain. Corporations like Exxon and Microsoft, no matter how large or powerful, cannot take income from you or force you to buy their products. Mutual gain is the foundation for market exchange. In contrast, political action is based on majority rule, either through direct voting or through legislative procedures involving elected representatives or unelected bureaucrats. If a legislative majority decides on a particular policy, the minority must accept the policy and they have to help pay for it, even if they strongly object. Political action, even when it is democratic, creates losers as well as winners. And choices are made politically. Voters face what's called a bundle purchase problem. So they have to choose among candidates who represent a bundle of positions on issues. It's not like you could vote for Donald Trump on the economy and Kamala Harris on social policy. Okay, and we could even get more specific. It's not like you can vote for Rand Paul on taxes or Donald Trump on foreign policy or Kamala Harris on abortion. You have to choose a candidate that represents a bundle of these positions. On election day, it's not like you can just pick some views of one politician and some views from another, and so on and so forth. This greatly limits the voter's power to make his or her preferences count on specific issues. So that's why you tend to see a lot of, well, rational ignorance and expressive voting. That my team is winning. I'm voting for my guy. So the situation in markets is quite different. A buyer can purchase some groceries or clothing from one store while choosing related items from different suppliers. I mean, what if we went grocery shopping this way? You just walked in and there was a cart of stuff in front of you, and then there was another cart of stuff to the other side of you. Well, you had to pick one of those carts, but maybe you don't want everything in those carts. Well, it doesn't matter. You have to pick one. You have to pick the bundle of goods. That would be silly if we did shopping that way. But that's how voting is. Okay? And income and influence, they're distributed a lot differently in the two sectors, market versus government. People who supply more highly valued resources in the marketplace have larger incomes. The number of these dollars or dollar votes earned by a person in the marketplace reflects his or her abilities, ambitions, skills, past savings, past inheritance, good fortune, and willingness to produce for others, among other things. In contrast, even in a democratic setting, one citizen, one vote is the rule. But there are ways other than voting to influence political outcomes. People can donate their money and time to help a campaign. They can also try to influence friends and neighbors, write letters to legislators, and speak in public on behalf of a candidate or cause. The greatest rewards of the political process go to those best and most willing to use their time, persuasive skills, and organizational abilities and financial contributions to help politicians get votes. People who have more money and skills of this sort and are willing to spend the time to do that in the political arena can expect to benefit themselves and their favorite causes more handsomely. That's why we see bloated government, bloated bureaucracy, and politicians that favor special interests. Competition and scarcity are present in both the market and government sector. It's not like scarcity or the competitive nature goes away. It's just they manifest differently in each of these sectors. Profit seeking is inherent in human action. We're simply trying to improve our state of affairs, and profit is a way that we see that we've done that successfully. But what type of profit is one incentivized to seek? I mean, firms, they can obtain profit by providing a good to somebody that sees value in it. They're providing value. They recognize a consumer's value. They provide a good that they want or need, and so they make a profit, and that tells them, hey, this is a high valued use. I should direct resources this way. But firms can also obtain monopoly rents through influencing legislators or regulators to craft policy that will help them benefit. I mean, if this approach is higher net benefits, firms are going to organize special interests and rent seek. Does a weak foundation of voter information mean that democracy should never try to regulate complex systems from above? Should we just not have any sort of political or regulatory decision making? No, of course not. That's not what I'm saying. But it does mean that regulators and political decision makers should be humble. And the hurdle for regulation should be very, very high. It's very hard to replicate the incredible efficiency that markets produce. In fact, what's so incredible about markets is they work despite the imperfections of man, despite the mistakes we make, despite how imperfect that we may be. But government keeps trying to fix that, to mold that, and you shouldn't, because you don't have the knowledge necessary or necessarily the incentive to do so. Yes, of course, efficiency isn't everything, but we need to have humility about what we can construct, and we need to have awe about what we can create. And that is Politics Without Romance, our lecture on public choice. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you next class.